revealed. How a Christmas dinner insult turned into an unexpected transformation for my life. Emma sat uncomfortably at the long dinner table, a kaleidoscope of laughter and clinking glasses swirling around her. The air buzzed with festive cheer, while the overstuffed platters glistened with roasted turkey and sugary pies. She watched her uncle Archibald, a man with a silver tongue and thick wallet, regale the adults with tales of his latest business conquest. She could taste the tension rising within her, a prickle of inadequacy beneath her skin. Ethan, her 10-year-old son, squirmed in his chair, occasionally flashing her a smile that made her heart swell with pride but also fill with fear about their uncertain future. Would he have thought I'd be worth hundreds of millions? Archibald laughed, slapping his knee, oblivious to the discomfort settled like a rock in Emma's stomach. It didn't take long before the words underachiever slipped from his lips, as casually as one might mention the weather. If only we all had the drive to succeed like I have. Poor Emma, still waiting tables. The laughter that followed was a palpable reminder of the chasm that separated her from the lives of her affluent family. Her breath hitched. Underachiever. The word hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Emma felt each year slip past. Her dreams of becoming a writer to share the stories woven from her heart and mind buried under the weight of bills, responsibilities, and the relentless grind of survival. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The insult echoed through her mind, reminding her of every time she felt inadequate, every job application left unanswered, every unpursued story idea brushed aside. Despite it all, there was a flicker of rebellion igniting within her. Archibald didn't know the late nights she spent writing in worn notebooks or the stories of her grandmother, a journalist who cultivated courage from the ashes of adversity. Memories surged. Her grandmother's fierce resolve, the smell of old ink and paper, the fiery passion behind her words. Would she continue to wallow in despair, allowing Archibald's words to shape her reality? They sat at the table discussing everything she yearned to be: promotions, achievements, awards, while she remained stuck, a silent spectator amidst the din. Youthful dreams seemed anchored down, smothered by an oppressive flood of reality. They danced tantalizingly close, but each moment, like a melted snowflake, slipped through her fingers. By the time dessert was served, Emma's mind swirled with possibilities. She would enroll in community college. She would uncover her voice. The urge to stand up, to confront her uncle's careless insult, bubbled under the surface, but she hesitated. What if her leap into the unknown fractured her life with Ethan? Then an overwhelming thought gripped her. What if she found herself amidst the labyrinth of knowledge, and rediscovered the fire of her writing? What if she propelled herself into the life she once envisioned? The tension in her chest tightened to the point of snapping, and she clenched her fists under the table, fighting against the urge to crumble in the cacophony of judgment. The chaos around her suddenly blurred, and in that moment, all that consumed her was the question: would she reclaim her narrative, or would she succumb to the title of underachiever forever? Emma's heart raced as the last crumb of pie disappeared from the table. She knew the stakes were rising. A confrontation loomed like a winter storm on the horizon, and she had to choose: remain shackled by family expectations or embrace the fierce ambition inherent in her lineage. The decision was only beginning, but the stage was set for a reckoning during the next family dinner, a moment where she would have to summon her resolve in the face of insecurity, and find out what she was truly capable of. The days following the dinner were a strange mix of exhilaration and trepidation for Emma. Each morning, she woke with a renewed sense of purpose, yet just as quickly, the ghost of Archibald's mocking laughter would cast a shadow over her ambition. Underachiever. The label replayed in her mind like a relentless loop, testing her resolve. Emma found herself standing at the proverbial crossroads. One direction led to complacency, where she could continue to be the dutiful waitress and mother, swallowed by family expectations. The other path was brimming with uncertainty, but also glimmers of possibility. She had made the decision to enroll in a writing class at the local community college. A small but vital first step toward reclaiming her self-worth. Each click of the keyboard as she completed the online application felt like a small act of defiance against Archibald's words. When Ethan asked about her plans, Emma's voice was steady despite the storm churning in her chest. "I want to write, honey. I need to do this not just for me, but for us." His eyes lit up, and for a brief moment, the burden she carried felt lighter. But doubt lingered like an unwelcome guest. As the first day of class drew near, she wrestled with the implications of her decision. What if it didn't work out? What if the other students were what Archibald claimed she would never be? Successful, driven, with stories to tell that mattered. The fear gnawed at her, a constant reminder of how precariously her dreams hung in the balance that on a particularly restless night, she dug out her grandmother's old journals, filled with the ink-stained musings of a woman who had fought hard to be heard. Each page was a testament to resilience, filled with stories that sparkled with hope and vulnerability. As she read, Emma could almost hear her grandmother's voice, urging her on. "Don't let them tell you who you are. You define your own story." The next morning, as sunlight flooded her small apartment, Emma felt a shift within her. She was not merely waiting for a life that resembled success. She was actively shaping what that would look like. She made a promise to herself. She would put the time and effort into writing, whether for her coursework or the stories that lived within her. The classroom was a world apart from her usual surroundings, a tapestry of different faces, each with their own story waiting to be unfolded. On the first day, Emma sat quietly, observing the dynamics around her. In an unexpected turn of events, she found herself picked to read a short piece she had written, her voice quaking but determined. As she spoke, she caught the encouragement in her classmates' eyes. This was not an environment of criticism but one of encouragement, camaraderie, and shared passion, a space where vulnerability was not only welcomed but celebrated. With each class that followed, Emma began to shed layers of insecurity. Feedback from her instructor, a seasoned writer, felt like a rush of adrenaline. "You have a compelling voice, Emma. Keep nurturing that." The validation was intoxicating but also terrifying. She was healing old wounds while walking gingerly toward her ambitions. Yet, as she grew more confident in herself, the impending family dinner loomed in the back of her mind. Would her newly discovered strengths hold up under scrutiny? How would her family react to her decision to pursue writing? Would Archibald's derisive comment echo in her ears once more? The conflict began to simmer with every passing day, igniting a decision that had long lingered just beneath the surface. Emma knew the confrontation was inevitable. It was time to gather her courage, to stand before those who had unwittingly shaped her doubts, and to share her newfound resolve. That Emma's heart raced at the thought. Would she truly seize this moment? Or would she shrink back into the shadows, allowing the weight of familial expectations to crush her aspirations once more? The time had come to face her fears head-on. It was now or never. As the days ticked down to the family dinner, Emma felt the weight of expectation pressing down on her chest. She busied herself with preparations, each task giving her a fleeting sense of control. Cooking dinner, setting the table, and arranging flowers for the centerpiece served as distractions from the storm roiling inside her. The sweet aroma of cinnamon and nutmeg filled the air, but it did little to quell her growing anxiety. That evening, she stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the collar of her blouse. The reflection staring back at her seemed both familiar and foreign. She practiced her smile, imagining the warmth she hoped would radiate from it. Would her family recognize the strength she felt budding within? Or would the shadow of doubt from Archibald and the others cloud their perception, reducing her to the underachiever they once labeled? Ethan helped her slip on her favorite earrings, a small gesture that grounded her amidst the rising tide of self-doubt. "You're going to be amazing, Mom," he said, his eyes filled with pride. Emma smiled back, her heart swelling with a mix of gratitude and fear. "Thanks, kiddo. I'll try to remember that." Once at the dining table, surrounded by familiar faces and the chatter of her relatives, tension buzzed in the atmosphere like static electricity. Archibald arrived later than expected, his usual bravado filling the space. "Hope you've all made something worth eating tonight," he joked, his laugh sharp and dismissive. The evening unfolded with predictable small talk, But Emma felt the encroaching pressure to speak up, to assert her newfound clarity about her path. Archibald's presence loomed large, yet the reminder from her grandmother's journals echoed in her mind, urging her to claim her narrative. As dinner was served, the conversation turned to everyone's latest achievements. One relative boasted about a promotion, another shared travel adventures, and yet Emma felt something building inside her, a swell of courage refusing to be suppressed. Actually, she began before realizing how many eyes were suddenly upon her. The fork she had been holding felt like a lifeline. I've been writing and enrolling in a class to pursue it seriously. Her voice wavered only slightly as she continued. I've realized that I want more for myself, to explore stories and ideas that matter to me. The moment she finished, silence reigned. She dared to glance at Archibald, whose narrowed eyes glinted with skepticism. A race of thoughts flickered through her mind, consolidating into a singular, potent resolve. She would not cave. She would not be silenced. You, a writer? Archibald scoffed, leaning back in his chair. What happened to just being a waitress? That's fine, you know. The derision in his tone cut deep, but her response was swift, firm. Being a waitress, a mother, and a writer, those aren't mutually exclusive. I'm not defined by just one role. I want to share my voice, my story. The words burst forth like a dam breaking, carrying with them the strength she had spent years cultivating. Seconds followed that felt like lifetimes. Some relatives exchanged uncertain glances, while others shifted in their seats. The air was electric with tension, yet she felt a growing warmth within her, a feeling of agency igniting in response to Archibald's challenge. As the evening progressed, her heart raced in tandem with her determination. Each passing minute marked a tiny victory over the narrative imposed upon her for so long. Would they accept her choice? Or would she need to fight to be seen as more than their preconceived notions? The stakes had risen. Emma realized this dinner held the potential to redefine her relationships with her family, particularly with Archibald. With every single bite of that meal, she began to forge a new path. But when dessert was finally served and the atmosphere lightened, a tension remained that whispered a further challenge she hadn't anticipated. What next, then? Archibald asked, skepticism drenching each word. Emma felt the ground beneath her shift, the fragility of her newfound resolve trembling against his provocation. Her heart raced at the thought, now confronted with the true essence of her journey. She could either retreat or embrace the unfolding narrative of her identity. But a ripple of something deeper stirred within. This wasn't just about her writing. It was about stakeholding her life. The next phase awaited. Would she boldly confront Archibald again? Or could she muster the strength to defy all odds and elevate her voice above the din of doubt? Emma knew she was only at the beginning of the uphill climb, one that promised to reshape everything she held dear. The moment of truth had arrived, and Emma found herself suspended between doubt and newfound strength. As the laughter from her family painted a facade of normalcy, she clenched the edges of the table, feeling the cool wood beneath her fingers. Archibald's question echoed in her mind, pushing her toward a precipice. What came next? Vague plans and half-formed ideas danced out of reach like will-o'-the-wisps, teasing her thoughts. There was a shift in the energy around the table, a subtle acknowledgement that Emma had pushed back, but had she truly made an impact? She studied her relatives' faces, assessing their reactions. What they thought was a momentary lapse in conceit. Would they resonate with the truth she had finally voiced? Or were they merely waiting for her to fall short? I'm looking for opportunities, she said, the confidence in her voice surprising her. To submit my work and perhaps start a blog to share my journey. It's daunting, but I'm determined to carve out my own space. Each word bridged gaps in her resolve. She was in control. Archibald's scoff resurfaced, but she only half listened. Instead, she focused on the shimmer of potential reflecting in Ethan's eyes. His belief in her made her heart swell, a reminder that someone stood firmly in her corner. Really? A blog? Archibald replied, eyes narrowed, but Emma met his gaze head-on. What do you expect to gain from that? A small audience of sympathizers. Sweet laughter rippled from the other end of the table, as if Archibald's arrogance demanded approval. But now, stood on the grounds of honesty, she felt the edges of her insecurities fracturing. I expect to connect with people who resonate with my experiences. That's more than just sympathy. It's about understanding and growth. His laughter faded to silence, replaced by a subtle shift as other family members leaned forward. Curiosity peaked. Connecting with people, huh? That all sounds nice, but you've got to have talent, and writing isn't just about passion. His challenging tone made her ferocity rise, a fire igniting that felt both fierce and liberating. Talent can be honed, she countered, her voice steady now. A declaration more than a defense. And that's part of my journey. I'm ready to improve, to learn, and to write stories that inspire. Her words carried the weight of every ounce of self-belief she had carefully nurtured. The room hung in tension, arching taut like a bowstring, poised to release at any moment. Emma felt the pulse of her heart quicken, aware that something fundamental had shifted within her. Unbeknownst to all but herself, she had crossed a line. A threshold staked firmly in the soil of her own ambition. As dessert plates were cleared and the voices grew quiet, Archibald's demeanor transformed. He leaned in, his smirk replaced by a hard glint of interest. So, what's your plan? You really think you can pull this off while juggling everything else? The challenge hung in the air, thick with expectation, as if he genuinely sought a response rather than a jest. Emma took a deep breath. The question wasn't just about logistics, it was a test of her commitment to herself. Each heartbeat resonated with an electric determination. I can make it work. I've been juggling things my whole life. What's one more plate to spin? As she spoke, she glimpsed a thread of recognition slip across Archibald's face, a flicker of understanding that he had underestimated her resolve. It felt triumphant, like gaining ground on the battlefield of her own life. Yet as she noticed a shadow of doubt flicker behind that glint of recognition, an unsettling thought crept in. Was he genuinely curious about her plans? Or was he merely rearranging his arguments to contain her ambition? With a renewed sense of direction leaving a vibrant trail in her mind, Emma realized the transformation didn't rest solely on her words. Action must follow. The echoes of this evening would not vanish with the closing of dessert plates. This moment might take root, and she could forge real change in her life if she committed to herself. Fiercely. What's next indeed? She mused, her thoughts racing with possibilities. With determination firming her resolve, she envisioned drafting her first post, her first submission, each decision intertwining dreams and reality into an intricate tapestry. But just as she considered her next move, painful uncertainty clawed back. What if she failed? What if she had to confront Archibald again, armed with the sharpness of his skepticism? There it was. The imminent confrontation swirled. Her passion weighed against doubt, but this time, she vowed, she wouldn't back down. As the evening finally drew to a close, laughter rose again to mask the tension. Yet she felt the weight of her journey shift, gaining momentum like never before. The path widened, offering countless routes, and she recognized she stood at an essential crossroads. Make her dreams reality or acquiesce to the persistent echo of cynicism. Emma was set to decide not only her future, but the narrative she would write for herself. The stakes elevated beyond Archibald's challenge. It became rooted in her very identity. The time had come to face her fears head-on, to seize the very essence of her being, and to claim her right to write her story. How she would step into her next chapter was uncertain, but one thing remained clear. There was no turning back. The real question was whether she could face the complexities that awaited her, both within and outside themselves. With a final breath filled with resolve, Emma prepared herself for what lay ahead. Little did she know, a revelation awaited that would either fortify her spirit or shake it to its core. What would it truly take to transform words into a living narrative? And beyond Archibald, whom else would she need to confront along the way? The week following the dinner settled over Emma like a thick fog. Each morning brought the same questions, twisting her thoughts into knots. She stirred her coffee absent-mindedly, scrolling through blogs and writing forums as a stark sense of urgency grasped at her. The towering to-do list in her mind seemed insurmountable, filled with the dreams she both yearned for and feared. Action was imperative, but where to begin? Her fear knotted tighter around her heart with every empty page that stared back at her from the screen. It echoed Archibald's voice in her mind, attacking her bravado with his skepticism. She could almost hear him sneering, questioning her capability, her talent, a haunting mantra that crept into her earliest hours. But today something shifted. Determination surged within her like a fierce tide. Today was the day. She would write her first blog post, a piece that would lay the foundation of her work, and, perhaps more importantly, expose a little of her soul. Why wait any longer? She felt a simmering fear alongside an exhilarating prospect. Sharing her authenticity and vulnerabilities could connect her with others. Sitting on her bed, Emma opened her laptop and drafted a title across the blank document. Finding My Voice. It felt tentative, yet it resonated. Her fingers hesitated over the keyboard, sinking into a moment of self-examination before leaping into action. She could feel a wild flicker of anxiety at the thought of her words reaching the public. Yet within that anxiety lay the very essence of growth. It was a risk. Sitting there, time slipped away. Hours passed. Thoughts flooded in, weaving memories of her struggles, of feeling unheard. And the empowering moment when she finally stood her ground against Archibald. They served as the threads of her story, intertwined with pain, yet shimmering with hope. Could these reflections resonate with others who shared her journey? As she crafted her narrative, the screen filled with words and emotion. Emma described the experience at the dinner vividly, capturing the tension of her family dynamic, and how Archibald's jibes had pushed her into self-discovery. She felt the catharsis in the process, her fears slowly transforming into a burgeoning confidence. Yet as the clock ticked on, another dark specter reared its head: self-doubt. Was what she wrote good enough? Would anyone connect with her story? Her fingers stilled mid-type, hovering above the keys as panic washed over her. Was she merely a pretender, trying to carve her place in an industry filled with skilled wordsmiths? A familiar voice nagged at her, echoing the worry, whispering that she was overstepping her abilities. Taking a deep breath, she forced herself to reflect. How often had she doubted herself before? How many moments had she almost let slip away, consumed by insecurity? No, she was not going to let this be another moment wasted. With a renewed sense of purpose, Emma returned to her draft. She infused her vulnerabilities into her words, blending her journey with relatable truths. The act of writing became therapeutic. It felt like blooming after a long winter, hesitant at first, then bursting forth with vibrant life. As she neared the end of her first piece, satisfaction swelled within her. She had captured not only her ambitions but the messy reality of striving for authenticity. She could feel it. The moment of transformation was firmly upon her. But just as the final paragraph drew to a close, her phone buzzed, prompting her to check a notification. It was an alert from a writing group she had recently joined. They were hosting a live submission event next weekend, encouraging members to share their pieces for feedback. A wave of excitement mingled with trepidation washed over Emma. This was it, a chance to take her words out into the world. To face not only the public but Archibald's voice echoing again in her mind. Emma stared at the impending deadline, feeling both exhilarated and terrified. She knew she would have to prepare for feedback, both good and bad. Would she be ready for Archibald's jabs and the scrutiny of strangers? Could she handle the vulnerability of sharing her voice, fearing rejection but inviting connection? The stakes felt astoundingly high. With her heart racing, she realized she stood on the threshold of another pivotal decision, a chance to solidify her commitment to growth. With a gulp of breath and a steadying hand, she opened a new window on her laptop, ready to submit her piece for the event. This was more than just a competitive step. It was a profound leap toward greater self-awareness, a bridge over her accumulated fears that would connect her past with her future. Would she take the leap? Or would doubt lead her to retreat? Only time would tell, but one undeniable truth remained. In embracing the challenge, she began to discover the writer she was destined to become. Little did she know her acceptance or rejection would come with ripples that echoed far beyond her initial fears, awakening new challenges she had yet to foresee. What awaited her on the other side of this decision? The day of the submission event arrived, the air thick with anticipation, and Emma's anxiety felt almost tangible. It clung to her like a damp cloak, weighing her down as she navigated through her morning routine. She barely tasted her breakfast, the slice of toast turning to dust in her mouth as thoughts spiraled around like a whirlwind. This was the moment she had braced herself for, but each minute leading up felt like a countdown to an uncertain fate. Instead of the celebratory zeal she had imagined, apprehension settled deep in her chest. What if her writing was perceived as inadequate? What if Archibald's voice, that insidious whisper of doubt, was right? The 5 days since she had written her first blog post felt like a blur. With every passing hour, she had rewritten it in her mind, editing phrases, second-guessing her honesty, and reworking her authenticity until it was unrecognizable. The urgency she had felt when she first crafted the piece now felt like a bittersweet mirage, taunting her with what could have been. With trembling hands, she opened her laptop, determined to confront the growing paralyzing stress. The document stared back at her, the cursor blinking impatiently as if mocking her hesitation. She could hear the echoes of her thoughts. You're not a real writer. How will people react to your vulnerability? But instead of retreating, she opted to confront those thoughts head-on. Emma took a breath and shifted her focus. What did she want from this submission? It wasn't about accolades or praise. It was about forging a connection through shared experiences. She envisioned her words reaching out to someone who might be feeling just as lost, opening a dialogue where solitude could be transformed into understanding. With clarity in her purpose, she quickly read through her draft again. It resonated with honesty, raw and unfiltered. It was her truth, and that felt powerful. Emma clicked the button to submit, feeling a mix of exhilaration and fear as the screen confirmed her entry. Yet that relief quickly brought forth a new awareness. What happened next would require her to confront her own expectations and withstand potential judgment that as she moved through her day. She was acutely aware of the ticking clock that counted down to the live reading session that evening. She felt unprepared, not just in terms of her writing, but with how she would react to the feedback. The specter of Archibald loomed large in her thoughts, ready to pounce on any sign of weakness or failure. Yet, a flicker of annoyance sparked within her. Was she still allowing him to dictate her worth? Emma decided it was time to reframe the narrative. She made a list, each letter capturing the qualities that made her unique. Resilient, thoughtful, persistent. The list quickly evolved into a mantra, something she could repeat in the quiet of her mind whenever doubt threatened her resolve. By the time she logged into the virtual session, clutching her notes tightly, there was a ghost of anticipation mingled with fear. As she watched others share their pieces, she reminded herself that they were on a collective journey, pushing boundaries, bearing their souls. She wasn't alone in her vulnerability. When her turn finally came, Emma felt the floor drop beneath her, the weight of countless eyes watching, judging, awaiting her words. She took a deep breath, fighting the urge to flee. This was her moment. This wasn't Archibald's dinner table. It was a community of seekers, each with their own fears and experiences. That as she began reading, her voice quivered slightly, revealing the unsteady resolve beneath her calm exterior. Yet, the further she went, the clearer her message became. She shared her experiences, the moments of silence when she felt invisible, her little victories, and how she learned to navigate through the chaos of expectation. With each word, the weight of her vulnerability transformed into strength. When she finished, the quiet that followed seemed deafening, filled with the charged air of unreleased tension. But applause broke through, filling the space, and she surrendered to the wave of relief coursing through her. The subsequent feedback was a testament to the power of her reflections. Comments poured in from participants applauding her authenticity, sharing their own related experiences, and expressing gratitude for her bravery. Emma felt the shedding of self-doubt, layer by layer, revealing a deeper sense of confidence and acceptance. Yet, just as a smile broke across her face, a message flickered across the chat. Someone had pointed out a pivotal moment in her narrative, one they felt would resonate with Archibald, asserting that there may be more to her complex past than she realized. Emma's heart pounded at the notion, a tapestry of unresolved emotions weaving its way back into her thoughts. Though she had overcome a significant hurdle, the ghosts of her past weren't entirely laid to rest. What other truths lay buried within her that demanded recognition? Emma knew this wasn't just an achievement, it was a doorway. What awaited her on the other side of this newfound understanding? Emma closed her laptop, the residual applause resounding in her ears like a nagging echo. She had unveiled a part of herself to which many had related deeply, Yet this new awareness provoked more questions than answers. The individual who had pointed out the resonating moment in her narrative, a moment still veiled in obscurity, for her now loomed larger than life in her mind. Was it just a casual remark? Or was there a kernel of truth embedded within it that she had yet to explore? As she stepped away from her desk, the walls of her modest apartment felt constricting. The same space that had been her cocoon now ignited her apprehension. For the first time, she needed silence to navigate the cacophony inside her thoughts. Emma found solace in her evening ritual. A steaming cup of chamomile and the sun setting outside her window. But tonight, even this comfort felt fleeting. She reached for her notebook, the one dedicated to her thoughts and reflections. The pages had captured her journey thus far, filled with scribbled notes of encouragement, revelations, and a few fraying edges where the tears had fallen. Emma flipped to a blank page and began writing, no prompts, no guidance, just words tumbling out. It was cathartic, a moment of allowing vulnerability to spill onto the page. What did Archibald's scathing critiques mean for her now? How did their biting exchanges shape her relationship with herself? With each stroke of her pen, Emma found herself peeling back layers, unraveling the complexities of her past. She remembered her childhood dinner tables, where laughter masked the sharpness of judgment. Archibald had always seated himself at the head, wielding wit like a scalpel, cutting down her dreams before they could blossom. Yet here she was, standing up for herself in ways she previously thought were impossible. The applause from the reading session rang in her ears as she pondered. Was there a way to confront Archibald, this voice that had haunted her silence? Perhaps it was time to reclaim that space she allowed him to dominate. Confrontation, she wrote at the top of the page. Suddenly, what she feared transitioned into something invigorating, her thoughts racing as the idea solidified. She could choose how to engage with him, or even how to disengage if needed. If she could survive the vulnerability of sharing her words with anonymous voices, then speaking to Archibald could be her next defining moment. Emma paused, her pen hovering above the paper. It became clear that the conversations she wanted to have were, in fact, inseparable from the work she had just published. The pivotal moment that had sparked someone's interest echoed with necessity for her. If she could find a way to channel her past into an empowering narrative with Archibald, she could redefine the terms of their interactions. The thought felt heavy and thrilling. She could already envision how to approach him. With calm determination, she made a plan to request a meeting, just the two of them. The thought of facing him, confronting his past comments with newfound confidence, was daunting but liberating. Her survival instinct, sharpened by her experience, kicked into high gear. The idea took root. The darkness of doubt that once enveloped her began to dissipate, revealing glowing strands of hope. Emma realized it was crucial not only to own her narrative, but to learn how to harness those moments that had once limited her. She set her notebook aside, the dusk deepening outside her window while embers of realization glowed within her. It was time to rewrite her story, not just on the page but in the very fabric of her life. Opportunity awaited, layered within connections both new and painfully familiar, that as she drifted off to sleep that night, Emma couldn't shake the nagging feeling that the real challenge was just beginning. How would Archibald react to her demand for an authentic dialogue? Would he be able to see her as she now saw herself, or would he remain the naysayer in her mind? These thoughts turned over and over, a spiral of possibility, leaving her restless until morning light brought clarity. Determination propelled her forward, but she knew facing Archibald would demand more than just courage. She needed to step into her own truth, fearlessly, once and for all. Just as she began to envision how this meeting could unfold, a message buzzed on her phone from a former friend who had witnessed her reading. "We need to talk. I know something about Archibald." The words hung in the air, swelling with unshed potential. Emma woke to her phone buzzing, the morning light filtering through her curtains. The message from her former friend lingered in her mind like an unanswered question, refusing to fade as she went about her routine. Breakfast felt tasteless. Her usual coffee couldn't wash away the anticipation buzzing in her veins. Why now? What could they possibly know about Archibald that would warrant a conversation? The decision felt heavy on her shoulders. She could either ignore the message, chalking it up to old grievances, or invite the potential fallout of digging deeper into the past. Emma's heart raced as she weighed the two options. Either could lead her closer to the confrontation she craved. What do you want to know? She texted back, her fingers trembling. She was already preparing herself for whatever emotional wreckage might follow. As minutes morphed into an hour. The mundane activities of getting ready took on a different hue. Each movement felt significant, almost symbolic of her commitment to growth. She picked out a navy blazer, symbolizing her desire to exude confidence. Yet its tightness reminded her of the shackles she had often felt in the presence of Archibald. After several back-and-forth messages, they agreed to meet at a cafe nearby, where Emma found herself pacing the small waiting area, mind racing. What would Allison share? Would it help her redefine Archibald, giving her the insight she sought to confront him effectively? Or was it a chance to retreat, to let the old wounds remain buried? The bell above the cafe door chimed, pulling her from her spiraling thoughts. A familiar face stepped in. Allison, her presence cutting through Emma's tumult. They embraced, and Emma felt shockwaves of nostalgia followed by dread. No longer could she afford to let memories dictate her self-worth. She had to engage, listen, and most importantly respond. Thanks for meeting me, Emma said. Her voice steady despite an undercurrent of apprehension. Allison's warm smile gave way to a serious demeanor as she reached into her bag for a worn envelope. I came across this and thought you should see it. It's a letter Archibald wrote after that disastrous Christmas dinner. Emma felt a shiver dance down her spine as she accepted the envelope. Examining the letter's creases, she could already hear his articulate voice taunting her, dissecting her dreams while masking critiques in dispassionate commentary. What does it say? The question slipped from her lips, almost involuntarily. Allison hesitated, her expression softening. It's a mix of praise and harsh reality, but it's also revealing in ways you probably haven't realized. There was a flicker of sympathy in Allison's eyes, a shared understanding of what that moment had signified for both of them. Emma's heart raced as she read through the carefully scripted words, each one unconsciously unearthing dormant feelings she thought she had buried. There were expressions of admiration, but they were eerily punctuated by doubts about her abilities, sowing seeds of insecurity. The rawness of his critique cut sharply, even now. What research did you do? Emma's voice quivered as she searched for a way to express her swirling emotions while keeping a semblance of composure. Our families are intertwined, you know that. I happened to hear some things about his thoughts on you when your writing started getting more attention. Emma's brows furrowed. The juxtaposition of those two realities chafing against each other, encouragement and derision, intertwined. In that instant, she recognized the empowerment buried in such revelations. Archibald had always been a mirror reflecting her insecurities, igniting self-doubt. But now the mirror cracked. The confrontation she yearned for now loomed larger, a battle no longer cloaked in fear, but cloaked in strategy and sheer determination. I need to face him, to finally articulate how those words shaped my perception of myself. Allison's eyes widened, surprised but supportive. Are you ready for that? Emma met Allison's gaze, an unfamiliar yet familiar fire igniting within her. I'm not just facing my past, I'm reclaiming my future. As they discussed action plans over lattes, Emma felt lighter, like the weight of years had begun to shift. But inevitably, the harsh truth remained painful. How well did she really know Archibald? Was there more lurking beneath the surface that could ambush her clarity? The moment pressed forward. It was time to write her next chapter, one filled with confrontation and clarity. A voice inside her whispered a new question. Was she ready to uncover what Archibald had hidden all along? Her pulse quickened at the thought, eager for the next step that would set her on a collision course with both him and her own deeper truths. The sun painted the cafe in warm hues as Emma and Allison wrapped up their discussion. The ambient noise of clinking cups and low conversations faded into the background, leaving only the intensity of Emma's own thoughts. She was catching glimpses of a courage that had long been hidden beneath layers of self-doubt. Okay, I'll do it, Emma declared, each word sharpening her resolve. I'm going to confront him head-on. Picturing Archibald's reaction fueled her fire, and with it came swirling emotions of anger and anticipation. Allison nodded, her face a blend of admiration and concern. Just remember, this is about you reclaiming your narrative. Don't let his words define your response. Emma acknowledged the truth in Allison's words, recognizing that her past entanglement with Archibald had always been a source of frustration. Understanding this would become her guiding star through the confrontation. As they departed, Emma found herself contemplating strategy. She needed to create an environment where she could articulate her feelings without losing composure. Maybe a public place would serve as a buffer, where each word would resonate against the backdrop of their history, yet feel liberated in the moment. Emma paused just outside the cafe, absorbing the crisp air, invigorated like someone who had just stepped into the light for the first time. Archibald had always been a shadow that distorted her vision, but now she was equipped with a newfound understanding of her strengths. The next morning, with a tinge of nervous excitement, she texted Archibald, proposing they meet to discuss their previous relationship and any lingering issues. The moment she hit send, a jolt of apprehension washed over her. What if he flinched at her request? What if he dismissed her entirely? Yet, she realized that their past no longer had the power to dictate her future. As she roamed through the nearby park, absorbing the sights and sounds around her, she felt a shift within. A resolve was solidifying as if each step brought clarity and momentum. Later that day, Archibald's reply came swiftly. "Let us meet tomorrow. I'm open to talking." Simultaneously thrilling and intimidating, his words filled Emma with determination. Already, she began mapping out points she needed to make, mentally rehearsing the moments where she would stand resolute, invoking the strength she fought so hard to cultivate. That night, sleep eluded her as her mind raced, crafting dialogues she might undertake. Flashbacks flickered of Archibald's cutting remarks, tangled with memories of triumph and joy that followed the moments he tried to dim her light. Each recollection was a reminder that she had grown far beyond the confines he had once placed around her. In her mind's eye, she envisioned the scene unfolding, his familiar smirk, a facade of confidence that always rattled her, then her own reflection standing between him and the truth. She questioned whether he would even comprehend the depth of his impact on her life until now, but that didn't matter. This was her chance to redefine her narrative. The night lingered with uncertainty, but alongside it grew a resilient faith in herself. "I will no longer shrink," she whispered into the darkness, intertwining her new mantra with her heartbeat. The next day, Emma took the plunge. Navigating the familiar streets leading to their meeting point, she felt a sense of purpose enveloping her like armor. This was not merely a confrontation. It was a reclaiming of power that flowed through her veins. As she entered the cafe where they agreed to meet, her heart raced not with fear but with the exhilarating pulse of possibility. She spotted Archibald seated at a table, already scanning the room with that self-assured demeanor she had long found disarming. Emma straightened her back, inhaled deeply, and approached him, every step echoing her resolve. She wondered briefly what Archibald would say when he realized she had arrived unafraid. Would he try to belittle her? Or would he be taken aback by the clarity she now embodied? The moment of truth was at hand, and it was time for her voice to break free from the confines of her past. Emma held her ground, the fire within her igniting with each heartbeat. Would this be the pivotal moment she had envisioned for so long, or merely another chance to retreat? As she neared her confrontation, the clarity settled. This was about more than just Archibald. It was about her future. "Archibald," she began, feeling the weight of her determination settle into words. And then she paused, knowing that the next few moments would change everything. What would unfold in this tapestry of confrontation and revelation? As Emma settled into the chair across from Archibald, a sense of calm enveloped her. Here she was, confronting the very person whose words had almost eclipsed her potential. She could see the flicker of surprise in his eyes, an unspoken acknowledgement that she was no longer the subdued woman from their last encounter. "Emma," he greeted, a trite smile playing on his lips. "What brings you here? I assumed you'd still be waiting tables." The taunt had lost its sting. Instead, it ignited a flame of determination inside her. "I'm actually here to talk about our last dinner together." She met Archibald's gaze, steady and unflinching. "Specifically, the way your comments made me feel." Archibald leaned back, feigning nonchalance, yet his posture suggested he was far more interested than he let on. "Not everyone can handle criticism, you know. It's how the world works." "No, that's how you work," Emma retorted, her voice steady. But I'm not here to focus on you. I'm here to share how your words affected my life, how they propelled me toward reclaiming my narrative. The weight of the past hung thick in the air, yet Emma felt lighter with each word she articulated. She explained her journey, the paths she had ventured down since that dinner. The class, her writing, the blog post she shared during the live reading, a reference point that had resonated beyond her expectations. She laid out the transformation in her life as if presenting a meticulously crafted manuscript, each chapter ripe with growth. I realized how much power I had allowed you to hold over me, she continued, her voice rising slightly. Your dismissal of my aspirations became my self-doubt. I let it shape my identity for too long. The shift in Archibald's expression wasn't a mere surprise. It was an unfolding realization, slowly creeping into his demeanor. So you think you're a writer now? His tone was deceptive, a hint of genuine curiosity entwined with disbelief. I know I'm a writer now, Emma asserted, asserting her newfound identity with pride. Through perseverance and authenticity, I've found my voice. I've come to understand that talent can be nurtured, and that passion can inform skill. There was silence between them, a newfound understanding rising like mist. Emma felt the clarity and strength radiate from her as the weight of years of condescension lifted from her shoulders. This wasn't just a confrontation. It was a declaration of independence. Perhaps it's time for you to recognize that not everyone fits into your standards of success. She allowed herself a moment to breathe. I am much more than your labels and judgments, Archibald. I'm creating my own opportunities, whether you consider them legitimate or not. He shifted in his chair, the cogs visibly turning in his mind. And what's next for you, Emma? If I remember, you plan to submit some of your work. Yes, she replied, emboldened. I've completed my first piece and shared it with an online community. I'm actively seeking opportunities to have my work published. This isn't just about proving you wrong. It's about owning my path and embracing the unknown. In that moment, she could see the subtle shift in Archibald's facade. The veneer of superiority chipped away, revealing uncertainty. You're serious about this? I'm serious. It's time to stop living under the shadow of someone else's narrative. I'm forging my own identity, and it's liberating. The silence that followed was palpable, stretching across the table as Emma's words settled like acceptance in the air. She had articulated her journey, not just to Archibald, but to herself. Each moment she had previously doubted had coalesced into something meaningful and empowering. Emma's heart raced with exhilaration. This was not just a confrontation. This was an affirmation of her self-worth. A reveal for both of them. The hidden truths of their interactions had drawn a line, redefining who she allowed herself to become. As they stood to leave, an unexpected moment of connection arose. Emma, Archibald said, breaking the tense silence, I can respect the courage it takes to pursue something so personal. I'm intrigued, honestly. I'm glad, she replied, her professor instincts taking hold. As long as you acknowledge that my journey is my own, you might be surprised where it leads me. With a breath imbued with finality, Emma stepped forward. The shadows of her past interactions with Archibald shrunk as she departed, leaving behind small remnants of doubt. She knew the challenges ahead, the inevitable critiques she would face, both from him and the world. But now she felt equipped not only with knowledge but with a solid foundation of self-acceptance. Emma exited the cafe, an unshackling sensation enveloping her. The future unfurled before her, a landscape ripe with opportunities waiting to be explored. With each step, her heart thumped with newfound tenacity, representing the continuous evolution of her identity as a writer and a mother. Emma had transformed into the architect of her own narrative. Layers of doubt peeled back to reveal a determined creator ready to face whatever came next. She conquered the fear that had haunted her and emerged as a resilient, confident individual, an authentic voice poised to share her truth with the world. To those watching her journey unfold, Emma would remind them that they too held the power to reclaim their narratives, to live fully in authentic self-embodiment, and to wander fearlessly into the realms unknown. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every click matters. Comment your reactions and theories about this conclusion below. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative journey. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.